We are coming out of a slump caused by major businesses, factories, manufacturing moving out. We are at a place where we're poised to step forward again. When I first came to Racine, people came here from every corner of the country for the jobs. They knew if they worked hard in the factories, life would be good. The factories left, they're still here. We need to see if we can turn that around and make that happen again. With the Foxconn presence 7 miles away, we have a great opportunity to do that. It's going to take a lot of intelligence, a lot of hard work, a lot of everybody pulling together to make it work, but I think of all the communities, we're in the best spot of all relative to Foxconn. I've been on the school board 10 years, I've been on city council 8 years. I know how government works, I know the rules, I know the state statutes, local statutes, and I think I've got the toolkit to help this community move forward. Thank you.
I apologize for not introducing our candidates. They do have their names up. Dennis Weiser, the incumbent in District 10. Sandy Weidner, incumbent for District 6. Jen Adamski-Torres, a challenger from District 6. And Carrie Glenn, the challenger from District 10. So I'm going to begin with you, Jen. And what leadership positions have you held that helped prepare you for this position?
Well, besides my business background, I've served as management for nearly 20 years. Some people laugh at that outdoors, I look a little young, but I've got the experience to back it up. So not only just the management experience, but I've also served for nearly 2 years on the Redevelopment Authority, working on development projects, and most recently serving as vice chair of that entity. So between that and also leading in church with my husband, working to kind of move the community towards improvement and working to gather stakeholders together to get things done. You know, I've worked with a number of those organizations as far as, you know, be it ministry related or community related, to just really bring everyone together. And I think that's kind of where I stand out, is I can really build consensus and get people together on one consistent mission. So, thank you.
Would you pass it to Sandy? They have 2 minutes, but you don't have to use 2 minutes.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. What leadership positions have you held that helped prepare you for this position?
Leadership positions. Well, I've held a lot of positions. Since I've been on council for the last 18 years, I've chaired the Public Works and Services Committee, I've chaired the Committee on Housing and Neighborhoods, I've served in a management capacity on the Cemetery Commission. I have a work life. I worked for Racine County Human Services, I worked for the Detention Center, I currently work at UW Milwaukee and HR in the College of Arts and Science. So several capacities. I also think it's a management position of what I've done in my personal life, and that is I've raised 2 children on my own, and they have turned out in a way that I'm very, very proud of them. Although I have 3 children, but one I did not raise alone. So, and that was a management position. So that's pretty much it.
Thank you. Dennis, what leadership positions have you held that helped prepare you for your position?
I've had a number of positions over the years. Probably the most formative one for me was being director of the Racine Education Association, where I was responsible for advocacy and support for 1,600 teachers and 400 classroom assistants, day in, day out, providing them help, support, counseling, legal advice, whatever they needed to be successful in their jobs. Since that, I have been on the school board for 10 years, where I was elected to serve vice president for 2 of those years, president for 2 of the years. I was on the library board for 2 years. Been on city council for 8 years, and I'm currently in my 3rd term as council president within the city. I've served on the city plan commission, which is responsible for zoning restrictions and reusing property where the purpose is changing. Typically, we spend a lot of time rezoning industrial sites to accommodate small businesses, to bring new businesses to town. I'm on the loan board. I was on the loan board of review, where we had low interest loans for people needing to rehabilitate their property. I've been on the finance and personnel committee, and I'm probably somewhat unique in that I can also say my experiences in leadership include 5 months as the mayor of the city of Racine. In between John Dickert and Corey Mason, the spot was filled, and I was lucky enough to be the one to fill that spot. And it was informative, rewarding, and a lot of work.
Carrie, what leadership positions have you held that helped prepare you for the position?
Okay. One of my leadership, okay, I'm sorry, 4th of July parade. Let me put that plain and simple. It is probably the best thing that's going on in the city of Racine right now. I have put that parade together for the last 12 years. And I do have to admit that each year that parade has gotten better and better. I have to work with a lot of people to put that parade on. I have to listen to the citizens of the city of Racine as what they want more in that parade. Why don't we have this? Why don't we have that in there? I have to answer all these questions for these people, yet also bring down a great parade down Main Street on the 4th of July that I take a lot of pride and a lot of passion in. Also, I was the property manager of Elm Plaza for Shopping Center for 14 years. Plus, I also manage 11 other shopping centers, one other one in Wisconsin and the 10 down in Illinois. I had to make budgets up for every one of those properties, and I also had to do year-end reconciliations. Every penny had to be accounted for. And that's one thing that I am very good at. When a penny comes in, I know where it needs to go and how it needs to go out. And also, like Sandy said, I am a mother of 4. I have raised 4 fantastic kids. Now I am a Gigi for 2 boys. My youngest grandson is 1.5 years, and my next one will be 4 on the 4th of July. So the 4th of July will always be my passion, and I want to bring more of that passion to the city of Racine. I think I am relatable and able to listen to what people have to say. I observe. A lot of times, most of the times before I speak, I observe things. Thank you.
Thank you. The second question, and we'll start with Sandy this time. How have you contributed to the betterment of the community, or how do you plan to contribute to the betterment of the community?
How have I contributed to the benefit of the community? Well, I've raised 3 great children that are living here in Racine and contributing. I've been a den leader for the Cub Scouts. I coached basketball for 6 years. 2 of those years I coached 2 basketball teams. One of my teams that I coached went undefeated for 6 years, and I still do not know what a pick is. Matter of fact, that was probably one of the most rewarding situations of my life, because one of the young ladies that I coached named Ardina Yarbrough, she went on to get a college scholarship because of her basketball, not because of my coaching, but because of her skill and talent. But she went on to coach with my style. And I remember when her mom told me that, I didn't realize I had a style. So I was pretty excited about that. So contributing to Racine, I've been a homeowner for 45 years. I've maintained my property and my neighborhood around me as best I can. I'm active and involved in my community with my neighborhood watch meetings, meeting with neighbors, looking at ways we can improve our neighborhoods. Been on city council for 18 years. I believe I contribute greatly to the council, working in my neighborhoods, representing people in the district, bringing their concerns forward. It's not just people from the district, it's also people from throughout the city of Racine that I work with and for. And also by doing my homework and my due diligence when it's time to vote on issues that are important to the residents of the city. So those 30-minute things really can. I'm so sorry. I guess it's better than a buzzer. So as far as contributing, I will continue to to contribute, even if the voters choose to elect someone else to represent the 6th district, that's fine. I'll always find ways to contribute. I'll probably go back to the cemetery commission because that is a passion of mine.
Dennis, how have you contributed or plan to contribute to the betterment of the community?
I would have to say without a doubt my biggest contribution to the community has been having 6,000 of their children in my classroom over the years. A week doesn't go by where someone doesn't come up to me and say, do you remember me? I still use my algebra, things like that. My favorite interaction with a former student came up about 5 years ago. A really old gray-haired guy walking down the street came over to me and said, "You're my math teacher from 1973. And I said, "I'll take your word for that. Can I ask you a question?" And I said, "Sure." "Well, we always wondered, did you really like us? Because we thought you did, but we didn't think you should." But the feedback from retired students or former students out in the community is very, very rewarding. I would not have traded that career for anything. Within the domains of the city, the two best projects I've worked on from my perspective, the open pantry at the corner of Drexel and Duran there used to be just a series of local convenience stores there. We got it back to being an open pantry, cleaned up, shiny, bright, and it's an anchor for the neighborhood again. It was struggling for a long time, and I'm proud to say I was involved with the tiny houses projects for the veterans. When they first came down the road looking for a place to set up their houses, our zoning ordinances weren't a good fit. We worked with them. They did us the great service of coming to us ahead of time to work collaboratively, and we made sure it worked out for them. I'm of the same mind as Sandy. Whatever happens with the election, I'm not giving back to the community. I will keep doing something somewhere, somehow, as long as I'm upright.
Carrie, how have you contributed to the betterment of the community?
I guess you all already know as the 4th of July parade. I'm not running my campaign on this 4th of July parade, but I have put so much time and effort into that, and over 100,000 people get one day out of the year to impress. And I think my committee and myself have done a really good job of it, and I continue to do this for as long as I can do it. My first grandson was born on the 4th of July, 2 minutes after the parade started. So that gives me more incentive to make that even greater, which I want to carry on to City Hall. I'm a relatable person, and I think that I'm your best choice right now.
Oh, so my plan of keeping track of votes first is well.
So one of my favorite sayings is, be the change that you want to see in the world. And I'd like to think that I've lived that out in most of my decisions in life. One of the biggest things I think from a one-on-one basis was that I was a foster parent. My husband and I both raised people that are now adults and raising their own families. And to me, that's a huge success to take somebody that's been in the system since they were 8 and is now successfully raising our granddaughter, believe it or not. So I think, that life experience personally has done so much for me. We were empty nesters before we had our own little 5-year-old son now, so we've lived life backwards in some sense, and it's given us a kind of unique perspective. So as I mentioned, I have a 5-year-old son who is learning 2 languages, fascinated with maps, and also in Racine Unified. And I want to make sure, because he's there and because of all our kids being there, that our school stays strong. So working on that. Also just, youth outreach as part of our ministry has been a big part of our life. Not just youth, but doing hip-hop outreach. So we've been around a very diverse group of people all of our lives. I've built a lot of connections with people that don't look like me. And I believe that's really important to, is to get outside of our bubbles. That's something I pride myself on. So part of having a child, I volunteer at Racine Unified within the school. I'm a wings volunteer. But also civic service that I do with the city, as far as my position as vice chair on the RDA. But I also, when I had my child, started a moms group locally with over 2,600 moms that were going through what I did as a working mom. Board member at church, I've trained small businesses in marketing here to make sure they can work with small budgets and be effective. I've hosted neighborhood block parties that brought people in our neighborhood together, and I want to continue to do that kind of work and also share some of the historical background that we have. I've served as part of the Underground Railroad Committee to let people know about the rich history that we have here.
The next question is from the audience, and it is, why does our city leadership seem out of touch with the people and the will of the people that elect them, and specifically, or an example, I guess, the arena?
The fundamental problem that we run into with the event center and other similar projects is we don't often always spend enough time talking about why we're doing something. We jump right into what we're going to do. And because we don't spend enough time talking about why we're doing it, when we pick a project, everybody looks at it with a different vision and says, well, from my perspective, it works, or from my perspective, it doesn't work. And what we need to do is talk about why we undertake these projects so everybody understands the purpose and they don't invent purposes without understanding the fundamental thoughts behind what we're doing. In other words, if we're going to take on something like the event center, start with a discussion of why would we do it. And I think that it would come up that why you do something like that is to bring more people to downtown, more people to the community, let our businesses flourish a little bit. But if we don't talk about why we're doing something, everybody invents their own reason for why they're doing it, and it's going to end up in a disagreement. The school district has been working hard on that for the last couple of years, and we've got a couple tools that we've started to use to help us focus on the why first and then worry about the what later. And in fact, if you get the why, that's the main part. The what is usually real simple if you get the why figured out. So we need to talk with everybody about why we're doing things, get a broad understanding, and then have a discussion on how are we going to achieve that goal now that we've agreed on why we're doing something. It's real common and it's real harmful in communities when you don't do the why first.
Carrie, the same question to you. Why does our city leadership seem out of touch with the people and the will of the people that elect them?
Why does our city leadership feel out of touch?
Well,
Just say that one more time, please. I'm sorry.
why does our city leadership seem out of touch with the people?
Because they are out of touch with the people. Plain and simple. That is what I'm getting from when I am out there canvassing the 10th district. They are out of touch. There may be a handful of people. I didn't know who my alderman was until August of last year. Never knocked on my door and asked for my vote. They are out of touch. They have, and they didn't want to go into this, but they have a good old boys club down there. And that's exactly what it is. I have been to lots of common council meetings lately. They are not in touch with the people. They don't get out and talk to people of my stature, who is just an honest middle class, honest tax-paying citizen. They don't want to hear my voice. They don't want to hear a lot of the neighbors' voices to how they feel about this. And the arena is a perfect one. Most people in the city of Racine did not want that arena. Why did it go as far as it did? That why was not investigated. Oh, she throws up a sign and I go quiet. That's okay, I'm good.
So I think the question was, why is city leadership out of touch? Okay. I think for some of the reasons mentioned, getting to the why, in business we always talk about vision, values, and mission. And we need to kind of hold true to some of that, but part of our vision is serving the city and making sure everybody is listened to and represented, and that we thoroughly go through that process. And sometimes I think in our haste we rush because we think things are a great idea, and we really need to look more intentionally at some of those plans. So I think part of the other issue that I've come across, though, is that sometimes we have this legacy thinking, and historical knowledge is great, but when it becomes a point where, when ideas are brought up or things are brought forth that, well, we've done that before. That's all we've never done it that way. And in my experience, that hinders progress, that hinders opportunity. But some things that could be happening sometimes get shut down by some of that thinking. It's a somewhat limited vision. And I think we need leaders that have the flexibility if there are new opportunities that come about, that we can work within them, that we can propose new ideas that do fit the vision of those that we're representing within the city. I want to make sure that we're not ruling by a loud minority of people either. Sometimes the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and a lot of people aren't listened to sometimes. And I think that's important, that we be taking everyone's feedback into consideration when making large decisions about large projects. 30 seconds, you got me.
Sandy? Yep. And I do want to restate the question is, why does our city leadership seem out of touch? Not that it is out of touch, seem out of touch with the people and the will of the people.
Thank you for clarifying that, because I didn't think that I seemed to be out of touch. However, I can see how there would be instances when people think that their leadership, including myself, are out of touch. A lot of people do not reach out when they have concerns, and I think part of that is because there is a lack of transparency in City Hall. We also have a real failure in getting information out to people. We no longer have CAR 25, which was a great vehicle for getting information to people. It doesn't exist as it had in the past, so we've lost a lot of opportunity there. Our Journal-Times is a failure as a newspaper. Last Tuesday night, we had a very exciting council meeting with a lot of important issues that were discussed, one being the conditional use permit for Mr. Azarian. The other was the discussion of having more diversity on our city's commissions, boards, and committees. Very important discussions that I'm sure a lot of people from our community would like to participate in. However, they don't know that we're having those conversations. So I think part of it is maybe a perception of leadership, maybe not being approachable. If that's the case and someone perceives me that way, I truly apologize, because I've always prided myself on being very approachable and listening to all different perspectives on things. But the other thing, I really think it is a lack of transparency. Too much goes on in City Hall behind closed doors. Too much happens in meetings. For example, the RDA meetings, the Finance Committee meetings are very difficult for people to feel like they can take part in. It's left up to the chair as to if people can take part in the conversation, and where their opinions and perspectives are appreciated and welcomed. And that doesn't happen, and I think that's kind of a sad part in what leads to that perception that we are not being responsive leaders.
Carrie, I think we're up to you again now.
Oh, no.
And the question is, what are the top 1 or 2 issues that you want to address should you be elected?
Carrie had the last one, so I can start this one so we stay on that cycle. I don't want to throw.
Oh, did you do it first? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So can you rephrase that? I wanted to make sure we're respecting the order.
Sure. What are your top 1 or 2 issues you want to address should you be elected?
So my first one is really working on economic development, and really to alleviate the burden that our working families and retirees are feeling. I've seen the challenges my dad has gone through financially as a retiree on a limited income with a disability, and we have trouble paying property taxes, something so simple. You get your nest egg set and you think you're set for life, and you're not. And young working families such as my own have some unique challenges. So I want to work on drawing new businesses, but also shoring up small businesses so that they can grow grow here, be sustained here, and also even just get started here without jumping through the 40 hoops that sometimes they have to go through. And really, in doing that, we broaden the tax base, we diversify the tax base so that burden isn't shouldered on just a few families and people. Also, I think equal representation is really an important piece for me. I've talked to a lot of people outdoors, that are disillusioned, that are voters that have not heard from their people or have honestly been mistreated. And I would kind of disagree with the fact that my opponent is completely approachable, because I've heard about insults that have been hurled at constituents, frankly. That's not appropriate in my opinion. We're servants of the people. And I think we need to be very humble in that role when we're serving in that capacity. So I want to make sure that everyone is heard, that everyone's represented, and that we're also working for their quality of life, because we all deserve to live with dignity.
What are your top 1 or 2 issues should you be reelected?
Can I do 1 or 2? So,
Well, as long as you're staying in 2 minutes.
So the issues that are important to me are the same issues that were important to me last fall when I ran for mayor, and that is the dysfunction and self-indulgence that I see in City Hall. That needs to be addressed before we can move forward as a city. We have made some mistakes in the past in regards to Machinery Row and the event center, and I think we have to regain the trust of the electorate in that. I believe that we have to change the conditional use permits that we have in the city of Racine to encourage small business to come here, to grow here. And that needs to be addressed in a very quick manner, because you see too many times when the restrictions that first the building department and the Department of City Development puts on small businesses has continued to deplete the enthusiasm for small businesses and entrepreneurs to come here and grow. So those are really my issues. The one that has always been close to my heart, the one I'm most familiar with is the commitment that the city used to have to improving our neighborhoods. That has kind of gone away. When I first was elected 18 years ago, we had 4 organizations in different communities throughout the city that worked on improving their neighborhoods. Now, fortunately, we have one that's in the uptown area. I would like to see some of those come back again so that other areas of the city of Racine don't continue to deteriorate and can improve. So those really are my priorities. And finally, I think one is very important. If I have offended anyone that I represent in the 6th District and insulted them in some way, I would like to know that. I can only think of one instance when I could not handle a situation. That was 2 families that fought for 8 years, the Hatfields and McCoys. And there are some issues that council members cannot deal with. It's beyond their control, and as it should be. So I'd like to take 10 seconds and apologize to anyone in the 6th District or the city of Racine that I've treated in a disrespectful manner, and embarrassed or humiliated in any kind of way.
Dennis, your top 1 or 2 issues?
It may be more than 1 or 2, but for starters, it has to be the local economy. When I came to Racine, everybody was driving from every corner of the country to be here for good jobs, good benefits, good working conditions, and everybody had a good work ethic, and the kids came to school with the attitude that work is in their best interest, and everything ran well. As the jobs went away, the work ethic got more difficult. We need to turn that around. We are in a unique position in that Kenosha has the ability to annex new territory right and left if they want to build new businesses, new subdivisions, that sort of thing. We are landlocked. Do some legislation and agreements signed roughly 15 years ago. It is more challenging for us to improve the economy because we have to recycle existing space, existing facilities. We cannot expand like many other cities can. So it is much more difficult for us. We need to be much more deliberate about it. We need to work on aligning people with jobs. There are a lot of jobs standing open in the community. There are a lot of people looking for jobs. We need to find out ways to match up available people with available jobs. It will take training. It will take some other efforts, internship programs, that sort of thing. But we can be acting in our own best interest on getting people back to work. The stealth thing that nobody's talking about is solid waste capacity. The solid waste dump site that Racine uses and many of our neighbors use is going to be filled to capacity in roughly 6 years. That's going to be a major problem for us. We need to start working on that immediately.
Bringing our voices back to City Hall, being engaged with that. There has to be a better way for City Hall to inform the citizens of Racine actually what is really going on down there. We really need that, and I want to be that voice for my district. Also, oh my God, also City Hall is top heavy. Why do we need a city administrator? We don't need one of those. We could better use that money on something for the city. Our city is not large enough for us to have a city, for us to need a city administrator. We also need to look at the hiring of some of those department heads down at City Hall. If you're not from Racine, you're not gonna understand Racine. There's no place like Racine. And I know that because I have managed shopping centers down in Illinois, 10 of them. Basically the same size as the city of Racine strip malls. And every little community there was different. We are so different. We need people down at City Hall that understand the city of Racine. And right now, we do not have that, which gives us that big gap that we have between City Hall and the citizens right now.
I'm going to ask another question from the audience, and this one is, what should be done about vacant homes in Racine?
Well, first of all, for the vacant homes in Racine is a growing problem, and it's happening in every single neighborhood throughout, not just the city of Racine, it's happening everywhere. I think the Department of City Development is getting a lead on that by attempting to get an inventory on what those properties are. You have to hold those banks feet to the fire that are holding those properties and not maintaining them, and just letting them sit because it's too much bother for them to divest themselves of them. And to find a way to not the city purchase them, but to ease homeowners into buying those properties and renovate them. I have a friend that has flipped houses in the city of Racine over the last 5 years, one at a time, and has done a phenomenal job. And I think we need to have more organizations willing to do that. We have to partner more with Habitat and Humanity, and perhaps all of us here need to volunteer for Habitat and Humanity to take on some of those homes to improve it. We've got to help people in how they become homeowners and what it means once they are homeowners and how to maintain those homes. So those are one of the ways we could deal with some of those vacant properties. On my block, we had one across, well, it's actually across the alley from me that was vacant for a couple of years. And it really is scary because what has happened over the last couple of years is people have just moved into those homes as if they still live there because there's absolutely no oversight. So one of the things we could do as well is reactivate the unit, the Unified Neighborhood Inspection Team, which was very active in patrolling or monitoring our neighborhoods to make sure that our alleys were clean, that our streets were clean, and that people would have a one-stop call to make regarding property complaints. So I think those are some of the things we can do to address those vacant homes that really are a blight on our neighborhoods.
What should be done about vacant homes in Racine?
I would like to say that vacant homes have been a problem since the real estate economy has collapsed. We may get some relief in this area with the presence of Foxconn. There are going to be more people moving to this area than existing housing can accommodate. So we may have some help with folks coming in to upgrade existing houses, tear down houses that aren't viable and replace them with better houses, but we can't rely on that. The Foxconn project is still very vague. Nobody knows the exact timelines. We can't rely on that. One place where we need to move forward is working with the county on the vacant homes. The county ultimately takes possession of homes that are abandoned and derelict in their taxes. The county takes possession of them, and they tend to sit on them for months and months, sometimes years and years before doing anything with them. We are having discussions with the county. We need to continue to have discussions with the county that the minute these houses become available, take a couple months to make a good faith effort to sell them. If not, let the city look at them, and if we have the federal grant funds available, which we often do, we can take over the house, refurbish it, put it back on the market. We do incredibly good work refurbishing existing housing. If you had a tour of the houses we refurbish, you look at them and say, I could live there and be real happy. We also have to work to find additional funds for those sorts of projects because the federal grant funds in that area are not what they used to be. We need them desperately. The other thing we need to do is start thinking about some long-term planning. Where do we want residential areas? Where do we want business areas? We looked at that about 50 years ago as a city. We need to readdress that and see if we need to make some shifts in how we utilize our neighborhoods. Thank you.
Carrie, what should be done about vacant homes in Racine?
I think we definitely need to hit the first-time home buyers with these vacant houses, educate them, help them. Instead of somebody buying them, fixing them up, and then renting them. Ownership of a home is very, very important. So we really need to work on the first-time home buyers and get them educated, and get them buying these houses, with the city working with them on that.
Do you need me to repeat the question?
No, I've got it. Thank you. Thank you. So, I think a lot of good things were mentioned. We've cut a lot of services to manage and oversee programs that are already in place. And, to reinvest in teams and enforcing ordinances that are already on the books to make sure that we are, already practicing best practices so far as that goes. But I think we need some flexibility in thinking, too, that we familiarize ourselves with other best practices and other innovations that our neighboring cities are doing, or cities of our size are doing, so we can learn from their, their successes, but also their failures. And I also, agree about making sure the county and city can work through these processes a lot faster. When it takes a year plus, 2 years for a property to sit vacant, so that the city can, help with that situation, to me that's too long. As talking to neighbors that have that situation. To live with eyesores like that for that length of time to me is unacceptable. So trying to bring some expediency to these processes is really important. And something that wasn't mentioned is, we want outside buyers to come in. We want investors with the possibility of Foxconn and that market picking up. We have to work on our perception. When you Google Racine, you hear ghetto, you hear lots of very colorful commentary about how bad our city is. And I think, to me, as somebody who was once looking to live here, everybody looked at me sideways when I said I was going to move to Racine. And we need to not just work on policy, but also work on perception. And I definitely want to get involved in that with my marketing background and business and just caring about our city.
This is another question from the audience. How do you stand on transportation for people to get to jobs where they don't have transportation?
Transportation is the word of the day with the advent of the possibility of a Foxconn development. Racine has long been a provider of transportation for people getting to jobs. We have a bus system. The bus system runs well. We need at some point to look at whether the large bus system of large buses is the proper model. Should we look at smaller buses? Should we look at an Uber or a Lyft kind of approach to transporting people to jobs? But we definitely need to transport people to jobs. Where we need collaboration and cooperation is jobs are no longer a community issue, they are a regional issue. Amazon down by Kenosha has jobs. Foxconn, Mount Pleasant is going to have jobs. We need to come up with regional transportation solutions because people from different corners of the southeast part of Wisconsin are going to be coming to different parts of our area for jobs, and we can't just look at it as a community by community basis. If you follow the news Sturtevant has been struggling with paying to have Racine buses come out to Sturtevant. There's a lot of opposition to having our buses drive out to their community. They don't want to do it anymore. We can't afford to have petty municipal battles determining whether people can get to work. We need to all pull together on this. Waukesha has already initiated steps to provide transportation systems to get their citizens to Foxconn. We need to do the same thing. We have talked about it with ourselves, but we also need to engage the rest of this half of the county in that discussion, because it's going to be a county-wide issue, not just a Racine issue. So we need to, number one, look at whether different models are more viable than the bus system. Number two, get a broader discussion going.
Carrie, how do you stand on transportation for people to get to jobs where they don't have transportation?
I agree with Dennis about a lot of these things. We do really need to look into a more express route into some of these locations, especially Foxconn, if that's really, they're really going to pull people from the city of Racine out there. I see these buses driving around town. I'm fortunate to have a car, but they are always empty. I have not seen a full bus or even a half full bus in a long time. Are these buses too big? I believe they are. We need to look into getting smaller buses and express routes. And I think we really need to research this so we can build up our ridership on the buses. But right now, I definitely feel the big buses just aren't doing it for the city of Racine. We need to move into the 21st century on something like this if we want to be viable and getting businesses to come here.
So transportation is really near and dear to my heart. I have a lot of kind of working class friends that, even our neighbors, have been in a situation where they don't even have a way to get to work. They work, late shifts, buses don't run. We have a neighbor that lives next to us that once, at some points in wintertime, was walking to Kenosha to go to work at Walmart. His coworkers got together and got him a bike so he could get around. This is what people are living with every day. And I think, we often have a conversation of, that bus isn't for me, I don't need that. And we need to fight that perception to make sure that we're not only just serving as we should, but that we're building up our economy. If we can't have people from the city get out to their jobs in Sturtevant, or even get out to Gateway to get training for these jobs that are coming from Foxconn and these places, we're setting ourselves up for failure. So even though it's outside of the purview of the city, getting a regional transit authority, getting some collaboration, as was mentioned, together to really create some bridges and have people thinking outside of just, Sturtevant or these other municipalities, but truly working together. And I just want to share one example. I was a train commuter for 5+ years, going from here to Milwaukee. If I wanted to get from my home to the train station, I couldn't without a car, which to me makes no sense. Why have to use a car to use public transit? I actually went before the Sturtevant board and proposed some solutions because pricing was going up even higher. They listened. So I think we just need somebody that can propose some solutions and get some real change initiated. So either on a micro or macro level.
Sandy, how do you stand on transportation for people to get to work?
I think people need transportation to get to work. I don't know that having a regional transit authority or another taxing body is really the solution. I think one of the things that has to be discussed, I think private employers need to step up to the plate and provide transportation or assist local governments in providing that. It should not fall on property taxpayers to the degree that it has over these years. I understand fully the need to have transportation. When I was growing up, my folks worked in Kenosha and neither one drove. So they relied on ride sharing. And that is a trend that has been growing again. 2 kids went out the Saturday night and they left both their vehicles home and Ubered everywhere they went. It can be expensive, but it also is a solution. We've got lots of new taxi services that are growing. Those could be used. And I know Waukesha in the past has use their transportation service to go into Milwaukee and bring employees out to their locations. Those are things we can look at. I don't know, well, the jury's still out as far as creating another taxing body for transportation. It is an important issue, and I think if all the communities pull together and stop looking at their borders, we can come up with a way to do that. So, yeah. Another thing I was going to say too, I had 10 seconds left. I can remember when I interned with Judge Flynn, he was a big one on transportation. If anybody ever decried the situation that they couldn't get to work, he was happy to provide them with a bicycle. Not that I'm saying that's a solution, but there are ways, you know, where there's a will, there's a way.
And I think it's Carrie's turn. How would you, how would you promote two-way communication with the residents you would represent should you be elected?
Two-way. How would I promote it? My front door is always open. Could knock on it any time. Just showing that you're involved and being engaged is something I think. While I've been out there door knocking, I've engaged with everyone that I've spoken with.
That's it for me.
Okay. How would you promote two-way communication with the residents?
So, I think, not only just being there physically and available via phone and email, but to use some other technologies too. I've talked to a lot of younger constituents who might not show up for, neighborhood watch meeting, but might engage on social media, might engage, in other ways that we're not used to maybe using as much, and to be able to leverage that, to draw more people in. We have people, especially in this day and age, that want to get involved in our communities, but just don't know how or don't have the bandwidth to physically come out. But there are other ways that we can be reaching out to people to engage them. I would also be providing a newsletter to constituents to make sure they know what's going on and continue door knocking, talking to people. And also I think, we need this transparency. When we're voting on issues, people need to hear about it beforehand. And, I think it was mentioned, we haven't heard a lot. Not everything gets printed in the paper. Not everything is, as clearly promoted. But I would want to make sure to work so that my constituents know when things are coming up that will affect them. If they want to come and have their voice be heard, that be an opportunity for them.
Sandy, how would you promote two-way communication with the residents of your district?
Well, I think I found a solution. I didn't find it alone. But last fall when I ran for mayor, there were a group of folks that built me a caboose. And we took that caboose around to several of the parks throughout the city. And we would fly the neighborhood before, and then people would bring their lawn chairs, come to the park, and we would discuss the issues that were important to them. I've tried newsletters. I've had Neighborhood Watch that we started with Ron Thomas back when I was first elected 18 years ago. That now is probably going to fall by the wayside because of lack of interest. We have to find other ways. I am not the most technologically savvy person in the world, mostly because I work 8.5 hours a day and I'm in front of a computer, and when I come home I don't want to get in front of a computer again. I do like face-to-face, I do like telephone because I'm old school. People have marveled when they've called me on concern, and I'll say I'll be there in 5 minutes because I'd rather talk face-to-face. Some people don't like to call, but I think getting out into the neighborhoods in the best way you can to talk with people is really the best way to meet with people. I'd also like to develop an app for my phone so that people could be in contact and learn some of the issues that are happening with the city. I think the city can do a better job providing the technology for people to be more aware of what's happening within the city and a better ways to reach their aldermen than what we currently have.
I would say that the city needs to do a better job of communicating out to the constituencies. Many times people only know about issues based on a couple paragraphs in the newspaper or 4 or 5 sentences on WRJ, and we need to do a better job of communicating out. On the school board, we have regular emails that go out, regular newsletters that go out. keeping everybody informed of everything that we're doing at every step. And at first, people looked at it and said, well, what in the world is that going to do for communication? And communication is absolutely blossoming. We are finding that the more information you give people, the more comfortable they are calling you back and talking about the issues. Now that they understand the issues, they don't feel stupid or threatened or like you're going to be looking down at them if they call and they don't know the issues that are being put forward. So I think we need to do a better job of initiating. I think we need to look at scheduling perhaps some sort of regular events. A mini event that I have discovered is going out for breakfast. I go out for breakfast 1 or 2 mornings a week, and invariably someone comes over and sits down with me. Never met them before in my life, and they just want to talk with me for 20 minutes. We need to find settings where people are comfortable coming together, doing it on a regular schedule, and meeting with them so they don't have to drive halfway across town or get technologically savvy, where they can just sit down, have a cup of coffee, and gripe for 10 minutes and go on about the rest of their day.
And it's Jen's turn. What are your plans for the city's brownfields, such as the former Walker plant, Racine Steel, Jacobson's Machinery Row, the former gas company at Lake Avenue and First Street? Now you don't have to address each one individually. I don't know.
I get 2 minutes for each one. I think in general, can you just read the beginning of that again? There's a...
What are your plans for the city's brownfields?
Yeah. So we've got a lot of, we were the city of manufacturing way back in the day. That time is, past to some extent, and we need to work to not only just reclaim those brownfields, but also make some plans. But I think we need some small wins. We're, I think, really overwhelmed with fatigue of proposals and ideas that have fallen by the wayside, and we need some small wins under our belt with some of those developments. So with the brownfields, I know it's not a very, if I can use the word sexy kind of thing, but we need to make sure that there's remediation happening, that we're working to get the funding that we need, getting approved through our multiple funding sources, not just out of our pocket, but via grants and other programs, to make sure we're working proactively on that. And to make that, again, going back to the vision and mission, what do we want these spaces to be? Do we need housing? How much do we need? And to work more intentionally on how we develop those spaces. And also being careful not to put the burden on the taxpayers. I think we're working to make sure that we can get some more private funding would be ideal in my opinion.
And Sandy? What are your plans for the city's brownfields?
Well, for the past number of years, Racine County Economic Development Corporation will come before the City Council and give a presentation each year and talk about the properties that they monitor for us. And every year I ask them, why don't we focus on divesting of ourselves of one and then move on to the next? Because it seems to me that we have had a real willy-nilly approach to acquiring properties. We have more properties now than we can possibly even inventory. And I am concerned because currently the city is in the process of tearing down all those buildings in Machinery Row and creating more brown space with not knowing if there is a developer that's interested in that. I think we need to attract developers that are willing to come here and invest their own money. And how we do that is by changing the perception. And how we change perception is have some little wins on being perceived as being more business friendly, and to focus our energies on one property at a time. The Walker site is a beautiful site, and if we can't market and sell and get that property up and running, I don't know what property we can, because that is right there. It's our gem on the lake. And if we would focus our energies and do something there, as we tried to do before the economy changed, I think putting ourselves in a win position would be very helpful and kind of create a domino effect for the other properties that we currently own.
Dennis, what are your plans for the city's brownfields?
We absolutely have to recycle brownfields, and if you aren't familiar with the terminology, brownfields are sites that have had businesses on them previously. Typically, they need cleanup from chemical pollution, but we have to focus on those because we do not have the ability to expand into new property. We are landlocked. If we do not recycle the existing spaces, we are going to be doomed as far as building our tax base. If we don't build our tax base, we can't ease the burden on the homeowners for property taxes. So we have to recycle the brownfields. We have to be looking at using the best technology available. The Racine steel casting site, we have used a new approach to cleaning that up. It's not going to be as expensive. It's not going to be as time consuming. We need to be aware of as many of those processes as possible. We have to use the space intelligently also. If we clean a site up, we need to have a discussion as to what kinds of businesses are appropriate for this kind of location. If it's located next to a residential area, we don't want to put a tire recycling plant in there, for instance. So we need to clean the sites up, make them available, put them on the market, and do it intelligently as possible so we aren't inconveniencing and damaging property values elsewhere in the community. We won't get a lot of business from the first wave of construction with Foxconn, but when the support businesses start moving in, we are going to be in a fairly good position in that Mount Pleasant and Caledonia, Mount Pleasant has already tapped out on how much money they can use for new facilities. Caledonia is just about at that point. We can have empty lots with water available that are ready to go. We have to be sure to have that ready when the support businesses come in for Foxconn.
Carrie, your plans for brownfields?
My plans for brownfields is, we don't need any more brownfields around here. We have enough vacant spaces right now. Let's try and fill those. We need to show people that are interested in coming to Racine that we're going to start with space and free brown spaces that we have right now. This is one of my biggest things is Machinery Row down here. That right now does not need to be torn down, and the city does not need to invest any more money into that. Let's fill the spaces that we have now. We have more than enough. We don't need any more.
The next question will be Sandy's to start with, and that is, do you think it is important to have a diverse group of residents involved in local government, whether in elected positions or in other positions? If so, how would you promote diversity? Do you think it is important to have a diverse group, and how would you promote it?
Yes, I do think it's important to have a diverse representation in our city government. We have a very diverse city, and I wouldn't have it any other way. That's what makes our city so rich in different cultures. And no, our city council and our boards and commissions are not diverse enough, and it has been something that I've argued for the last number of years. Thankfully, this year, Alderman Kate from the 3rd District argued for a more diverse water wastewater commission. And his voice was heard, and the mayor appointed at least one appointment more diverse to that commission. It was refreshing to me, and I said at the time, to hear a voice other than my own making a plea to have more diversity, not just of race or ethnicity, but also a diversity of opinion and thought is important. So what would I do to promote it? Just as I've lived my life, I have a very diverse and rich culture that I come from. My family is very diverse. I've always encouraged our council members, a diverse group, to run for city council, to approach the city about serving on commissions, boards, committees, and I'd continue to do that. And I would continue to encourage the mayor, who is the only one that has the ability to appoint, to continue to look for ways to make those commissions, boards, and committees more diverse in every way.
Do you think it is important to have a diverse group of residents involved in local government? how would you promote diversity?
I think it's incredibly important to have a diverse group of citizens involved. Unless every member of our community feels involvement and ownership with our city government, if we don't have the sense of involvement, everything becomes much more difficult. The process to get them involved involves taking an effort, and we haven't taken much of an effort on that. What we can do is start publicizing where vacancies are coming up on committees. You can buy software that allows people to self-talk to people. There are some committees that you could start out on with relatively little background in the city and feel comfortable and productive. There are some committees where if you don't have a good background, you would be just totally miserable from day one. So we can steer people to different committees based on their background and experiences. And part of that is just making this an ongoing process. We know the committees are going to get reappointed each year. Make it an ongoing function of every alderman, every department head to recruit people for these committees. So when springtime comes around, we have to appoint fresh people on the committees. We have long lists to work off of.
Carrie?
Yes.
Do you think diversity is important in local government, and how would you promote it?
It is extremely important in local government, and to promote it, we need to reach out to our citizens of the city of Racine to really look at and research who wants to be on those committees. Background checks are always darn good, and I think we need to have new committee members. I think there are some that need to stay longer than others to keep things going in the city of Racine, but I really think that we need to reach out to our citizens. And there are a lot of volunteers out there that wouldn't mind doing stuff like this, but it's just that the City Hall is not reaching out to these people. And not getting it out there to be known that we need more representation, more diversity in these committees.
You want me to repeat the question?
Sure. Yeah.
You think it is important to have a diverse group of residents involved in local government, whether in elected or in other positions? How would you promote diversity?
Thank you. So something that wasn't mentioned is, I think a lot has been said. We're trying to invite people, we're trying to get people in. In my experience, I'm who I am, but my foster son is Black. My son is part Polish and part Puerto Rican. My granddaughter is part Vietnamese and part Black. I have a very unique life experience, and what I've learned from that is a lot of these kind of opportunities to welcome people into leadership comes from a one-on-one experience. People don't go outside of their comfort zones. That goes both ways. And I think really for that development to happen, we want to see, we talk about wanting to see diversity, but really that happens in the trenches. That happens with representatives engaging with people that look other than themselves, that aren't in the same socioeconomic circles, that don't go to the same church, to put ourselves into those situations that might not be comfortable at first, where we feel like the odd one out. Racine was voted the 4th worst city for African Americans. And, just saying we need diversity on the committees is not enough. We need to be able to foster and promote young leaders to get involved, to walk alongside them so that, people are aging out. Young leaders need to be taught and mentored. And I think mentorship is a huge piece of what we're missing in the city. We need to bring people along on this journey. Something I'm doing on my campaign is bringing young leaders in, or aspiring leaders. Somebody even in high school is helping on my campaign. So that barrier that seems to be there, this mysterious barrier that politics is not for everybody, can be pulled the veil back a bit and get people involved, even in small ways to start.
Sandy, you already answered it, right?
Sure, but I can go again.
Dennis, as an alderman, would you support a city investigation into the machinery road development?
I'm going to decline to comment on that. We are currently actively involved in litigation regarding machinery rule, and we are advised by our city's attorney. Attorney's Office not to make comments on that issue.
I'm going to make the decision not to ask that of other candidates as well. So I'll give you an easier one. Are you in favor of taking out parking meters? And if yes, why? If no, why?
Some of the best discussions I've had knocking on doors over the last couple of weeks have been on parking meters, and I would say it's a pretty even split on it at this point. The notion with parking meters is if we take them out, it makes the downtown a little more user-friendly, a little more accessible. The other side of the coin is there's a revenue stream from parking meters, what we use for a replacement revenue stream. The more subtle concern is without parking meters, we need to find a mechanism to make sure cars aren't simply parked in front of a business for 2 days with no intention of doing business there. So it's a healthy discussion, it's an interesting discussion. I don't think we fleshed it out enough. It's going to actually be heading for a committee of the whole meeting for broader discussion. And the enjoyable thing about the discussions out in the community with it is people are looking at it from the viewpoint of what can we do to make downtown Racine more marketable. They're not worried about the dimes and quarters they put into them. They're worried about what does it take to get more people coming to more of our businesses on a regular basis. And I think that's a real healthy indicator that people are having those kinds of thoughts and those kinds of discussions. So my suggestion is to stay tuned. There's a whole bunch of other things tied in with that for making downtown more attractive, like angle parking instead of parallel parking. And we're going to be getting into a whole bunch of those discussions in the near future.
Would you be in favor of taking out parking meters? Yes or no, and why?
I would absolutely not. It's revenue for the city of Racine. I really don't think it's that big of a deal. I was working when I was 13, 14 years old. I worked up at West Racine, and they had that same issue there. It's these parking meters. Does West Racine still have parking meters?
Yep.
Yes, they do. It's just something that I think the city, from what I've been getting at the going to the common council meetings, is I know we need to do something about our downtown Racine. We definitely do. We didn't need an ice rink. Are those the people that are complaining about paying for meters? The ice rink was ridiculous. It was absolutely ridiculous. So I say we need to keep those parking meters. A lot of the reasons that Dennis said why we should keep them, I don't even think it should be a discussion.
Jen?
So, you know, we had somebody here, Roger Brooks, came to present at the Golden Rondell. He talked about destination downtowns. And, you know, I think just talking about yes or no removing parking meters is kind of a small fragment of a larger conversation. And again, going back to strategy, you know, people hate parking meters, people hate tickets, yes, but what is our overall strategy? And I think they've studied what has been successful in other cities, and things like back and angle parking has been successful, flexibility and paying for parking, but just flat out removing meters. Again, you know, for the people that want to come shop there, how are those business owners going to feel when somebody's plopped their car down for 5+ hours to not shop? You know, I think that we have to take a more strategic look at the parking situation. And also be looking, you know, specifically downtown. Some of the things that we're working to do are programmatic. So we need some programs in place to draw people downtown. Things like, you know, the skating rink. Things that draw people so that they can stay there and enjoy the downtown and not just, you know, drive straight through it en route to another place. So, yeah.
Do you want me to repeat the question?
Something about parking meters. Is it something about parking meters?
Yes, it is.
Well, there's all kinds of parking meters. There are parking meters on the streets, and there are parking meters in our parking ramps, which I think is very necessary because it's those parking meters that pay for the maintenance and the deck and the building of those parking ramps, and that is something we need because we do not have enough street parking to support the businesses in our commercial areas like downtown and soon to be uptown and West Racine. So those parking structures are very important. I have had many discussions with many of the businesses downtown, and they would like to see the parking meters go away because they swear that we have dozens of officers working, waiting for the meters to expire so that somebody can get a ticket. And at the same time, we get very little parking enforcement in the other areas of the city when people do not comply with the parking restrictions. So I think there will be some interesting conversations, not only, as Dennis said, about the parking meters themselves, but also in how do we address the perceptions of downtown with the speeding issues and those kind of things. I know I frequently go to Kenosha for their huge farmers market during the summer, and they have no parking meters down there. They have tons of parking available, and it never seems to be an issue. So could it work? I think that it could here, and I think it could improve the business climate, at least the perception that, you know, if they run into the store, they're not going to come out 5 minutes later and find a parking ticket. As what happened to me when I went to Sanders Paint and went in to get change for the parking meter. By the time I came out, I had a parking ticket. So I know it is an issue.
I had that experience
Good talk,
recently myself. The next question, I'm going to go back to our prepared questions. And Carrie, what strengths do you have that would benefit your work on behalf of your constituents? What strengths do you have?
Not just these guys.
What strengths do I have?
I'm a very good listener. I like to my husband shook his head over there.
Yes or no?
He was kind of like this. I am a very good listener, and I'm a very good observer of things. I don't want to, I want to hear everything before I make a commitment to something or I vote on something should I make it. And having that, I listen, and I've listened to so many of my neighbors in the 10th district so far. I just can't believe what they're saying. And I'm taking all that in. Should I make it to City Hall, I'm definitely going for some changes down there and making that gap smaller between City Hall and the citizens of Racine.
What strengths do you have that would benefit your work on behalf of your constituents?
So I think, you know, one of the things as a mom, I've had to learn to really prioritize. So that strength of being able to really be organized, not just, you know, in home life, but in business and in doing all these things and being effective, that organizational piece is really critical to me. I think interpersonal skills are really important. Being able to bring relationships to the table, to be able to bring people together, be that constituents, be that people in the city, people as far as city staff or as the city council, to have those relationships is really important, and that credibility too. To be the bridge as well between the expertise. You know, I can speak the language of, you know, RFPs and proposals and KPIs and SOPs and all the acronyms. We love acronyms in business, but I can also be relatable. So I can bridge that gap and not try to talk over people, but really meet them where they are. So.
What strengths do you have that would benefit your work on behalf of your constituents?
Well, I believe my experience is very important. I think I have a reputation as being tenacious. I believe I have a reputation of being open to all. I'm honest, I'm hardworking. I'm informed on the issues when I vote on them. I pay attention to other people's opinions, whether they know it or not. And I do consider those when I vote. I try not to go into things with my mind made up on something. I think that's very important. I don't march to anybody's drum except my own and my constituents. I believe that over these years, people who follow what's happening in the city look to me, not so much for leadership or guidance, but they have a trust that I am honestly trying to do what I believe is in their best interest. If they don't agree with me, they're not afraid to tell me so, or at least I thought they weren't. So I think those are some of the things that I bring to City Council. Also, that experience is so important in that institutional memory. There's been a lot of changes that has happened over the recent years, which is not always a bad thing, but it's also important to remember some of those things that were tried and true and worked in the past. For example, tonight I mentioned about all the neighborhood organizations that we had 18 years ago and how beneficial those were for the city. We had a committee on housing and neighborhood where 7 aldermen served on that committee, and every department except the fire department was a liaison. So every month, citizens would come in and express their concerns to that committee, and the departments could act on it right away. A lot of folks on the council now aren't even aware that existed, and I'm hoping that we will generate a culture and environment that would reconsider some of those things that we've done away with that have been successful in the past. So I'm old, and that's good.
What strengths do you have that would benefit your work on behalf of the constituents?
When I first was interested in getting on city council, I was asked the question, you think you'll be able to get along with them okay? And I said, well, considering the fact I just spent 25 years in a room with 9th graders, I think city council will be easy to work with. I've had a lot of experience working with lots of different people. When you're in charge of the teachers union, you're representing 1,600 teachers, 400 classroom assistants, and I think I have come to be recognized by the community that I'm open, I'm honest, I don't make judgments based on personalities, confidences will be respected, and all I'm concerned about is trying to find mutually agreeable solutions when problems arise. The fact that I was elected to vice president 2 years on the school board, president for 2 years on the school board, president on the city council for 3 years, I think that's kind of a message that my peers on these different boards of directors understand that they're getting a good deal with me, that I'm focused on the job, I get on with the facts and not my personalities, and that we can work together to solve things. My greatest sadness about being involved with government is the answer to every question, every debate seems to be either a yes or a no, not do we need to work on this more, do we need to come up with something a little different. The discussions, the decisions are too brief, they aren't productive, and I think people recognize that I have a sincere desire to solve things, not just to get them off the table.
And Jen, you are up.
Yeah, I did. Short and sweet.
How do you see the role of city council person in creating an equitable society?
Yeah, I think, we all play a role, but in government it's a very unique role because, again, I think, as I alluded to, we need equal representation, and can you restate that? That was kind of an oddly...
Well, there was actually an earlier...
So her 2 minutes isn't money, is it?
Yeah, maybe we should... Actually, the person wrote, what is your definition of social justice, and how do you see the role of city council person in creating an equitable society? So it seems like a lot to answer. I picked the one about how do you see the role, but that's the context of the person asking the question, social justice.
I think it takes an awareness of the issues, as of late, with even things like the shooting that had happened. There's a lot of emotion around a lot of that. There's a lot of hurt, there's disillusionment, there's anger, people are saying there's anger, and I think we need to be better at communicating openly, at that transparency, and understanding and respecting when issues come up, that we not have these disparate opinions or jump to any conclusions when we're dealing with these things. We really, I think this is where compassion comes into play. It's really near and dear to my heart. I think part of that really comes into play with being engaged in the community, and not just within, the small bubble that we all have, and making sure that when we're writing policy, that we're considering all the impacts of it. But the bullying ordinance that had come up was a great example. There was some great conversations around that about the impact that one policy could have, from multiple parties, multiple people spoke about that. And I think we need to always keep that kind of mindset is not just only, the goal that we wanted to achieve, but how does that impact people that we might not be considering when making these policies or these decisions about our local government.
I'll just wing it. Because really my answer is pretty simple. I think a social justice is something that is integrated into all of us in all of our roles. City Council is a little different entity, and I have seen some of the functions and responsibilities of the City Council being frittered away because we just don't have enough time, energy, and effort to do the due diligence we need to do with our council business. And it's great to be a social justice warrior, and there is a place for that. And there is a small place for that in the City Council, but it can't be part of what the council does. It just has to be a part of who they are, if that makes any sense to you. We have to be sensitive to those social justice issues, but at the same time, if we have part-time aldermen out in those that can do it, fine, but it shouldn't be a part of what their role and responsibility is as an elected official. We should be focused on what we're there to do, and that is to provide the best level of services that we can, and keeping the tax as low as we can to continue to provide those services, try to continue to move our city forward, including everyone. And I think social justice issues are important, but I think there is a place for those, just like there is a place for religion, which is separate from our role and responsibilities as a council person.
So the full, what the person wrote is, what is your definition of social justice? How do you see the role of city council person in creating an equitable society?
I think city council has an obligation to be fair, equitable, and consistent in everything that we do. In order to achieve that successfully, we need to be the best listeners in the world. If someone comes forward with a problem, we can't say, oh, I've heard that before, or I'm aware of that. We need, whatever problem comes forward, we need to listen to it. We need to listen to it in the context of the person's background, and we need to be willing to say, are we doing this action, whatever it is, as equitably and consistently as possible. It's not something we enact by resolution, it's by how we conduct our daily lives and how we listen to people and deal with people. When John Tate refers to me indirectly as an old white guy, I don't take offense. I understand he's advancing a social issue that's more important about me being an old white guy.
And Carrie, do you want me to repeat it?
No, don't.
Okay.
It's long. It's very long. First and foremost, I'd have to say a lot of this starts at home. Really, a lot of this really does start at home. And us as elected officials, we really need to level the playing fields. We really need to do that. We really need to be more engaging in our community. And like Sandy said, these are very sensitive issues, but I think a lot of this stuff that people want to pin on an older person needs to be started at home.
Sturtevant, Foxconn is going to bring a ripple into Racine that I hope we don't let slip through our fingers. We will be creating opportunities through some of the programs that we have in place. We'll have to expand some, we'll have to tweak some, we'll have to grow some other programs to help people interested in the jobs that will be offered through Foxconn and the subsidiary businesses that come from that to prepare them for those jobs. We've got to improve our neighborhoods so that this will be a community choice to come and live. I work up at UW Milwaukee, so I drive through Eastside Milwaukee and Shorewood every day. And those communities do not have a lot of businesses on the east side, very little commercial areas, it's mostly residential. And I often see our city as being a replica of what those communities offer. A lot of amenities that want to bring people to those communities. Beautiful neighborhoods, old neighborhoods, lots of trees, lots of parks where people want to be. And I see Racine as having an opportunity to go in that direction. We've got space that we can fill and bring in more people, have more housing, grow our population so we can remove some of the burden of the taxes from the few shoulders that now are carrying that burden. So I see a lot of opportunity for jobs for people, for improving our housing, for improving our commercial corridors so that business want to come here and grow here, improving our brownfields and having the subsidiary businesses come here. You know, I say this so many times. I drive down Northwestern Avenue at 6 o'clock in the morning. Every day at Northwestern Rapids Drive, I meet the Great Northern truck. And every morning I say, thank you, thank you, thank you, because I know they're taking 20 minutes out and 20 minutes back in with their merchandise, and I'm so grateful that they stay.
What opportunities do you see for turning around some of the challenges facing Racine?
I think we are living in a land of opportunity right now. The housing market collapsed, 8 or 10 years ago, and Racine is going to be one of the last places to come back from the housing market collapse. But when you talk to people from Milwaukee, from Chicago, from other places in the Midwest, they can't believe how attractive Racine is, how affordable Racine is, and what a nice downtown we have. So I think we're on the cusp of seeing lots of people coming here to live, lots of businesses investing their businesses here, and a rebirth of Racine. The developers that you talk to are looking at Racine because Kenosha and Milwaukee are absolutely unaffordable for many developers at this point. The prices for land, properties, buildings in those big areas have gone through the ceiling. We are immensely affordable. We are immensely attractive. I talked to a developer 3-4 months ago, and his interest in Racine came about from the fact that he had built an upscale hotel on the south side of Milwaukee, and it was filling up with people from Racine. And his thought was, maybe you guys need an upscale hotel in Racine so people don't have to leave town to find, or not a hotel, an apartment building, excuse me, apartment building. And his thought was maybe an apartment building, upscale in Racine is what you need. We have tons of opportunities like that at this point. Foxconn is going to open a whole world of opportunities for us. We're not going to get the big bag of money with having the actual Foxconn plant, but the fact that Yorkville has taken themselves out of the competition with Foxconn is going to open up the door for us to get small businesses, residents, small apartment buildings, and so on. We have a great future ahead of us.
Carrie, what opportunities do you see for turning around some of the challenges facing Racine?
Some of the opportunities. Racine is rich with history. We need to bring that back. Let people know what Racine is really all about. We need to really encourage people to talk good about our city. There are so many people that do not talk good about our city, but you know, this right now, yeah, it is a turning point, but we need to jump on that and really make Racine to be out what it really is, not what outsiders think of us. I think Racine is a great city. I spent my whole entire life here from West Racine. I think there's so many opportunities out there. And it's just sitting down with people and working out what is the best for us.
Jen, what opportunities do you see for turning around some of the challenges facing Racine?
I think, the opportunities that we have, we've got the housing stock certainly available. I think as Dennis mentioned with the crisis back several years back, people are looking for a sense of community that we offer that is unlike a lot of other places that I've been to. We need to not only just attract those people, but get them involved in the work of the city. And I think the opportunities we have now, unlike maybe other times in history, we've got people that are involved in things like Vision Integrated Racine, that they're taking time out of their days to come out, figure out how to implement ideas that have been kind of crowdsourced from all these people throughout the community to make these things happen. So we've got the people power to do a lot of these things and the more strategic approach to accomplish some of this. So I think we're at a pivotal point where concerns and bringing forth issues are good, but we need to also be able to think on our feet and be flexible. And we've got a very unique time in our history to be able to do that and to work on policy and not get so bogged down in day-to-day kind of ruling in a case-by-case basis. So I think we have an opportunity to think more strategically. We have an opportunity to leverage the people power that's here in the city, and we have an opportunity to leverage all the energy that's coming from Foxconn development and the national attention that Racine is getting.
Thank you, everyone, for your patience. We're coming now to the close. Every candidate will have the opportunity to have a couple minutes to wind it up. So, Dennis, it's your turn to go first.
I think we are all in the right place at the right time. I think this community is going to turn around. I think we have economic opportunities becoming available because other portions of the Midwest are becoming so expensive. I think we're going to have job opportunities available in large scale with the advent of Foxconn. We need to move as aggressively as we can to take advantage of this opportunity. Opportunities do not come down the road of opportunities of this magnitude do not come down the road more than once a century. If we miss this one, shame on us. I think we need to work on communication in a whole bunch of directions. I think City Hall has to do a better job of communicating information out. If we don't do a good job communicating details and specifics, the public invents their own facts, and it usually doesn't work real well with the invented facts. We also have to be prepared to listen more. Maybe we need to schedule routine listening sessions, that sort of thing. We also have to get better at communicating with each other. Oshkosh got the Bucks farm team for one reason. When the Bucks went to Oshkosh, the business association showed up, the county government showed up, the city government showed up, civic groups showed up, churches showed up, and they all said, we want to work with you. We don't do enough of that. We communicate in isolation, we communicate in fragments. We need to learn to communicate as a body working together if we want to get where we want to go. Finally, the City Council needs to start thinking real seriously about doing more long-range planning. We're going to see big shifts over the next 10 years. We need to be ahead of the game on that, not in a reactive position. We need to be aggressively planning long range.
Carrie?
I just want to say to everyone that this is extremely important, your vote on April 3rd. Tonight I am extremely nervous to be here. I'm so used to just talking to people face to face, listening to what they have to say, and I'm taking all that in. I want to move Racine forward. I enjoyed what Racine was, but I think Racine can be even better. And that's really what my goal is to make Racine better. Open up communications. Get that gap, get rid of that gap. Make each citizen feel like they are part of everything that is going on in the city of Racine. I think we've lost sense. And we need to find that sense again. And I think once we can get everybody back on the same page, we're going to make Racine great again, because there's a lot of good things going on in here. And we just really need to come together, forget about our differences, and let's just make Racine the best place to live in the Midwest. I don't think I can go further than the Midwest, but let's just make Racine the best place to live in the Midwest. Let's jump on the opportunities that we get and move forward, bring Racine into the 21st century. We really need to do that.
So thank you for the time. I want to close with the why. I think, why does this all matter? And my family chose Racine. We saw the potential that it has, and we've talked a lot about potential and opportunity. And this is an opportunity to really to work hard, bring real solutions, and some of that requires some flexibility and some stick-to-itiveness. And like my opponent would say, she's tired of banging her head on the wall. She quit, changed her mind. I understand that, and I couldn't see myself not doing it. I could see myself serving because I love the city, because I want to make sure that my child and that our grandchildren have a place where they can grow up, where they can stay and succeed. I hear about kids needing to move out when they grow up for job opportunities. There's so much potential here for us to change that. So we deserve somebody that's enthusiastic about serving our district and really working to make that positive impact. So we've got a lot of beauty and potential here that we could develop, and that's my why.
Thank you. Well, I didn't realize that I quit. I still, every day, am doing my job as a member of the City Council. And I will say this, that on October 17th, for the first time, I lost an election. And I said many things when those reporters stuck those microphones in my face and said, "Are you going to run for City Council again?" And the first thing that popped out of my mouth was, I said I was going to step up or step away because I was tired of beating my head on the wall. But then I also said I have complete faith in the voters, and I believe that the voters get it right. They got it right when they elected Corey Mason. I think he was right for that time, because had I got elected, I probably, that veto would not have stood. I trust the voters will get it right again on April 3rd when they elect either Jen or myself. I think Jen will do a fine job if she gets elected, and I don't. I think the 6th district will be left in good hands. I have never, ever ran a campaign against any individual. I don't look at Jen Adamski-Torres as my opponent. She is simply a young woman that is pursuing the same seat that I've held for the last 18 years. And that is something I sincerely believe. I did not run against Jeff Peterson when he ran 2 years ago, and several years ago when Dwight Mosby ran. I did not run against him. I've always been issue-driven. And part of my passion has been serving the people of the city of Racine. And as Jen has pointed out, evidently, I have disappointed some people, and for that I am tremendously sorry. But I will tell you one thing, I have never quit anything, and I did not quit City Council on October 17th when I did not get elected mayor. I have remained as passionate and as enthusiastic as even Jen can attest, because of all the council members, you see one person cropping up at the RDA meetings of which she sits. So that is a testament of the passion and commitment that I continue to have, even having lost an election. So I want to thank the voters of the 6th District and all those people in the city that have supported me.
Okay, you can finish your sentence. I'm very impressed by the candidates here, and I think that the residents will be well represented. Sandy's right, the electors will make the right decision. We just have to get people out to vote.